So it's very clear if we own the contract, we own the data of the contract, we can generate an invoice instantly, dynamically and programmatically without any human interaction, without any manual entry. So it can be not only more secure, but it can be faster and it can remove all human error that generally happens in invoice generation. And then all you got to do is when you send that invoice, have a payment process, ability to connect to bank, be able to put in a credit card, then you've got an all-in-one solution.
Today, we're thrilled to have Marty Ringlein, CEO and co-founder of Agree.com, discover how Agree.com is revolutionizing contracts, signatures, and payments, transforming complex processes into a seamless, unified workflow. Get ready to unlock the future of business efficiency.
Joining us today is Marty, who is the CEO of Agree.com, a platform transforming how businesses handle contracts, signatures, and payments in one seamless flow. Marty, what sparked the idea for Agree?
Yeah, I think like most founders, I experienced the pain firsthand. It was just, one of those things that felt so obvious, but because no one had fixed it, I just thought it's supposed to be broken. And so it was clear that at the end of most signatures, someone has to pay someone money, but you have to go to 3 or 4 different vendors to do it. And I think one day we just asked, we put on our product hats and said, why? And then we got into it. We really delved in like, why isn't DocuSign doing this? Why isn't Stripe doing this? And, it turns out that it's a complex problem and it's historical. And we mapped it out. We said, hey, we know how to solve this. And we think that it'd be a lot of value for us. So we built it for other people who move money through contracts, which is the majority of businesses, that we'd have a pretty big thing on our hands. And it turned out to be true, which was great.
So with your team's mix of fintech, product, and engineering backgrounds, how did you align around building a contract to payment platform?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part is on the surface, it Agree feels and looks like a better version of DocuSign, which it is, but it's not how we monetize. And so we kind of reversed engineered it where we said, hey, nobody should be paying for DocuSign. Like you're just e-signing. Why are you paying per seat per head for these envelopes, whatever those mean? It makes no sense. And so it was inevitable to us that the DocuSign value prop will become a commodity. And then the question is, well, if you did it and you offered it for free, how would you make money as a business? And when we connected the dots that at the end of those signatures, somebody has to pay, we realized, oh, well, if we monetize on the payments the same way Stripe does, 2.9 and 30 on credit card or ACH and wire, then we can make money on payments. So it turns out that it's not a contracting company, it's a fintech company, it's a payment processing company, but it uses e-signature as this amazing wedge to get there. And in the world of AI, data is everything. And it turns out that in a sales contract specifically, all of the payment data is in the contract. So if you do the e-signature and you own the contract becomes the central point of truth to revenue. And then that lets you facilitate invoices and payments. So it was really like, I think the spirit of your question, it was our backgrounds in fintech that kind of made this possible because we understood the money movement side of it. And then, as avid users of e-signature products, it was very clear how we connect the two.
How did you turn early interest into long-term engagement?
Yeah, so right out of the gate, when we launched the MVP, it was 1,000 users in the first 26 days. We were pretty stoked about that. But what really caught us by surprise is 60 days later, it hit 10x to 10,000 users. Now it sits at about 40,000 users. Product's only been out for about a year, so we're excited about all that momentum. But it's obvious how it works, but what caught us off guard was just how fast it clicked in. There's a natural PLG motion or viral effect within the product because if you're using it and you send it to someone to sign a document, then they're
Yeah.
exposed to the product. And then they
Yeah.
might say, hey, that was a really great experience. I should use it. And so it turns out that 33% of our users come to us, their origin story is someone sent them docs to sign. It even helped us on the fundraise. We raised venture capital, but a lot of the VCs, their first exposure is either a founder sent them docs to sign on Agree. And they're like, oh, this thing's awesome. What is it? We even had one investor partner over at Norwest. We met him and he said that he just moved to San Francisco, got a new apartment, and the landlord sent him the lease on Agree. And that was his first. He's like, oh, this is amazing. What is this company? What is this startup? So it helps us with new customers. It helps us with fundraising all around.
So, how do you approach growth differently when your product touches legal, finance, and operations all at once?
Yeah, this is one where, we have a very specific approach on our side where I'm not a big believer, especially early stage startups of trying to boil the ocean. I can't go after all of those customer segments and win them all in the same way. So we believe in the mantra, it's slowly and suddenly. Like you have to have a radical amount of impatience for this to win, but you got to be really patient to get there. And so I think that's a frustrating thing to do. But what we do is I need to win. I need the finance team to adopt this. I need them sending invoices on the platform, but that's not where I start. There's a multitude of reasons. One being that selling into finance can take a little bit longer, so longer sales cycles. Switching costs are a little bit higher, and that means that onboarding and conversion takes a little bit longer. But sales teams, turns out, they're really frustrated with DocuSign, and they're not having a good experience. They don't see the value in it. They don't think they should be paying for it. So what I do is I go to a sales team and say, "Hey, stop paying for DocuSign. I've got a free version. It's better in every way." And they're like, "Oh, it's 100% free." That's a very easy thing to do. And switching off of DocuSign is pretty easy. And then the magic is once they're using the platform, and it's like a line in the sand, but I say about 6 contracts. Once they've sent 6 documents out for signature, I feel like, okay, they're in, like they've adopted. I get them to increase their use of the product onto the invoicing and payment side. So it's not about introducing a new product into finance. It's about extending the use of a product that the company already loves using. And really, it's a bridge between a CRO and a CFO. And those two people, they're all focused on revenue, but they don't have a lot of tooling that interconnects them. And so once it becomes obvious that, like, oh, this is a really efficient connection between two pretty connected teams that are siloed by nature, finance and legal, or finance and sales, then it kind of sells itself. But the point is, don't sell into finance right away. We never really sell into legal. It's more like, oh, the sales team is using this to send contracts, then legal kind of uses it by default. But I don't. The one thing I don't do is I don't fight with Microsoft Word. So legal teams, lawyers, they love using Word. Let them use Word, and so we'll just ingest from Word. We'll play nice with Word.
So, was there a moment where you realized Agree wasn't just a tool, but something businesses could build entire workflows around?
Yeah, and I think this is one where, I'd always known the answer to that question. I mean, I don't know if I know it's yes, but I know it has to be yes, and then I'll have to figure out how to get there, but it has to be more than just a subset of features. But I think, to the you use the word workflow in that question, and in 2025, everything has an AI component. That's obvious. It's like it's got to be on the internet, it's got to have AI. But I think the bigger question for us is as agentic AI sort of became a hot topic, you got to ask yourself, do you have an agentic play? The answer can totally be no, and that's fine. But for us, it was like, okay, agentic AI is really just around workflow automations. What are the workflows here? And where can we add value to a company to help make those workflows more efficient, optimize them, and make them faster and more secure? If we can do that, we've got a big victory. And it was very clear to us that it's what we're building. It's bigger than e-signature, and it's beyond payments, and it really is around revenue forecasting, revenue reconciliation, revenue recovery. It's really just it's a revenue machine because we know everything about the economic health of a business. We know all of their open close rates on the sales side. So we know when people sign, when they don't sign, how long they sign. We know signature velocity, but I also know the same thing on invoicing. How many invoices get paid? How many never get paid? How many get paid on time? How many get paid late? By which segmentation or category of customer it happens? And then I know how much you actually make in a year. So we have a unique data set, and we can do a lot with that data to add more value on the revenue side. Forecasting, invoice factoring, it just becomes all these different pathways for us to become sort of more integral to the core health of the business beyond just signing a document. But it all starts there. It starts so simple, and then it gets so big and so complex.
Fantastic. And then you just listen to the users, right?
Yeah,
Or
all the time,
monitor.
every day.
So Agree sits at the intersection of contract signatures and payments. How do you make that complexity feel seamless for users?
Yeah, and this one where AI, does all the work for us. When the GPT-3 beta came out in June of 2020, we started playing around with it. It was immediately obvious to us because of the generative nature of Gen AI and it being context aware, that legal documents would be ripe for sort of being rethought or disrupted or reimagined with this new technology. So we threw thousands of documents at the model, and two things came to fruition that are critical to the foundation of Agree. The first one is the number one person who sends a legal doc for signature in a company is not a lawyer, it's a sales rep, and that turns out to be a sales contract. But number two is what makes a sales contract different than any other legal document is that it contains payment information. So who pays who, net 45, net 60, how much they pay, if it's a schedule, if it's recurring, if there's an escrow, how much is the escrow, what holds the escrow, what releases the escrow, if there's payment terms in terms of what happens if there's a late payment or delinquency on payment, what happens if there's a missed payment, all of those details sit in that contract. So if you own that contract, you can extract all those out. Those are just variables, right? They're just data points, but they're the exact same variables that go into an invoice. So it's very clear if we own the contract and we own the data in the contract, we can generate an invoice instantly, dynamically and programmatically without any human interaction, without any manual entry. So it can be not only more secure, but it can be faster and it can be remove all human error that generally happens in invoice generation. And then all you got to do is when you send that invoice, have a payment processor, the ability to connect a bank, be able to put in a credit card, then you've got an all-in-one solution. So that it became very clear to us when we understood what data lived within behind those signatures. So we always say that a signature is really just an invitation to be invoiced. And so if we bring those two together, we've got a home run.
What's one feature of Flow that users don't expect, but they rave about once they've used it?
Our favorite one is, we call it the Amazon effect. So if you've ever ordered something on Amazon and whoever the carrier is that's going to deliver it, especially here in New York, it's very common where I'll get the Amazon and they'll say your shipment's on its way and you can track it. But when I track it, it tells me how many stops. Like I can see the truck. So I know where it is in Manhattan, and I know that, 4 more stops and it gets to my house. And it has an estimation of when it's going to get there. Everybody loves that. It's like, oh, I can actually like plan my day. Or I know when my package is going to arrive. And we thought, well, what if we had that for revenue? And most teams are completely in the dark. They don't know when the invoice was sent. They don't know when the invoice was opened. Basic like DocuSign functionality. Just tell me when you opened the invoice, if you ever opened it. What we don't know is when ACH was started. We don't know when it was cleared. We don't know as a sales rep. I don't know when the funds actually hit the bank account. So I don't actually know if my customer paid or not. I have to wait for finance to tell me, and that could take days sometimes. So it'd be really interesting if I could track that. And ACH is this sort of black box where you process your payment, and sometime between today and 5 days from now, it's going to land. Nobody knows where it is in the ether in those time. So I tell you, hey, you missed your payment. And you're like, no, Marty, I processed the payment. I did a wire. I went through ACH. I was like, oh, okay. Well, we just got to wait in limbo. You said you did it. I don't have any proof that you did it. Just take you on your word. Now we're actually tracking it real time. And so we know exactly where it is.
What made you come up with that feature? Was it users talking about that, or did you just start to think, oh, that would be great to implement for the users?
It's a pretty roundabout way. When we were doing the initial research, we talked to hundreds of people. And one of the common problems with money movement, especially larger transactions, things over $50,000, is this security issue called man-in-the-middle attack. So what will happen is I will send you my invoice, and in that invoice, I will put in there, or in the email, I'll tell you my bank account and routing numbers. I want you to wire money. Now, what a bad actor will do is they'll get in the middle of that email. They'll grab that account routing. They'll actually put in their account routing, and then they'll send that email to you. You get an email who you think's from Marty, and everything is what Marty said, except for those 2 little numbers. Then you go to wire $30,000, and $30,000 never makes it to me. It goes to the bad actor. And this is very common. Almost all Fortune 5000 companies at some point are victims of this multiple times over. Most of the VCs that we pitch to at some point have been victims of this. And one of the things you can do to get in front of this is you can obfuscate the account routing numbers, and you can use virtual account routing numbers. And so you can do a one-off, kind of like a virtual credit card where the account routing only works this one time. And so it makes it harder for people to steal account routing numbers. But when we did that, we put it in for security measures to just be a more secure platform. We realize that we get the byproduct of it because it's essentially our account routing that's right in front of your account routing. That means that we see everything. So I know where the funds are because of this little security thing that we did, and it afforded us more information and more data. And it's like, oh, well, now that we have that, we realize, well, what can I do with that? And then this sort of idea of like the Amazon effect came into play. We're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then we just talked to a bunch of salespeople. We're like, I would absolutely love if I had access to that data.
How do you design for trust when you're dealing with money movement, signatures, and legal docs?
Yeah, this is one where I'll answer it sort of in a way that's important to us. A lot of it's like UI, UX. It has to, the brand has to look, and the application has to look and feel secure, right? The email you get, the link you click. If it looks old, you think one of two things. One, it's an old platform, or like you're a little suspicious that like maybe you shouldn't be paying through this thing. The other is just the brand itself, agree.com. It's completely different if I have let's try agree.io, right? Because I could, with that domain name, I could convince you to use the product. But the problem is, it's not you, my customer. It's what we call the customer's customer. When you send an invoice or a contract to sign on let's try agree.io, my instinct is like, what is this, toy that you've sent me? I don't trust it. It doesn't feel secure. Just send me the DocuSign is what I would say. But with agree.com, the impression that people get is, oh, I've never heard of this. It must be because this is what bigger businesses use. This is what professionals use. This must be the new tool to use. And it feels and looks more secure than a DocuSign or a Panda Doc or a QuickBooks invoice. Those things end up starting to look less secure than agree.com, which is kind of what we wanted. But it means that, you got to have a great brand, a great domain name. So in that sense, great domain names are expensive. You end up buying trust. Like when everyone is asked, like, why'd you buy the domain name? Because I bought trust instantly.
I wonder how much that domain name costs.
Yeah. We can't share it publicly, but once we end the pod, I'll be happy to share with you privately.
So has there been a product decision that didn't go as planned, but taught you something valuable?
I mean, that's a tough one because I just feel like the answer is absolutely yes, but they happen every single day. We've been at it for 20 years, just building products in general, where we just pivot so fast that constantly are making mistakes. But I'm still believe that's what you're supposed to do. I'm of the old school guard of move fast and break things, just fix them insanely quickly so that the consumer never knows, but we know. But one thing that I just talked to our team about is we had somebody join the platform who moves a good amount of money, so they're really good sort of prospect to have, and they were getting a little frustrated with the invoicing tool, which means they're a little more upmarket than we're ready for, which I think is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find customers that you're not ready. Find the ones that are you're perfect for, but also start to find the ones that you're not. And you want to learn like three things. The first one is, can I do something manually to get past any of the gaps in the product? Right? Can I do things that don't scale? I'll do it for you, whatever it needs to be done. Or can I find some kind of trick or hack or duct tape solution that works for you, even if the feature's not there, whatever you're missing? And the third thing is you just tell me, hey, it's not a good fit. Product's not working for me. And that means I lose you. And that feels like a gut punch, and it feels like you failed. It feels like you did something wrong or you weren't good enough. But what I told the team is like, no, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, this is what's supposed to happen, because if we believe this is the right kind of customer for us, we already knew everything that they needed. It's on the roadmap. But all this told us was those things need to move higher up on the priority list. And we need to take them more seriously because we have this customer. Like, they're right there, but we're losing them because they're not there. So now I just know that how to prioritize features. So all this customer did was reinforce a product roadmap we already knew and then helped us prioritize the roadmap. So I look at it as like, in startups, like you should always say, like, we don't lose, we win or we learn. And this was like a learning moment. And I tell the team, like, this is exactly, I hope we have more of these. Right now, I want every customer to love us. But I think if you're not failing or you're not losing in that sense, I don't think you're moving fast enough. I don't think you're taking enough risks. I don't think you're moving up. You're not trying new things enough. So like, we have to embrace it.
So with a lean team supporting major growth, how do you stay focused without burning out?
Yeah, and this is one where not everyone will love, because I think if you're going to do a startup and it's going to be a high growth startup, you've got to be all in. It has to be all consuming, and you got to have a team that's all in and they're willing to make it all consuming. So, we're not going to have touch grass conversations. We're not going to have work-life balance conversations. I'm certainly not going to ask people to work nights and weekends, but I look for people that are so passionate, so excited, love what they do so much that they can't help but get immersed in the work. And it means that, like, I'm not going to ask you to work at night, but when you go and you take a shower and you're in that moment where, like, you put the shampoo in your hair and you just thought of an idea, you didn't even know you were thinking about it, but it came to you. Like, I want people like that, or somebody that wakes up in the middle of the night, grabs their notepad and writes it because they dreamt the answer to a problem that they didn't even know they were solving in their sleep. Like, I would look for those tends to be more experienced people, senior people. So if you're going to be small and lean, I think you have to just surround yourself by people who, I'm not asking you to work all the time. I'm just looking for people
Not
who
like
love
you.
Yeah. Well, no,
Till
I just
1
love your
a.m.
stuff so much. Yeah, constantly. 1 a.m. I mean, and yeah, I don't get the 8 hours of sleep that I probably should, but it's not because I'm burning out or grinding too hard. It's just
That you're
having so much,
immersed.
so much fun, so much
Yeah,
fun.
you love it. So what kind of culture do you aim to build internally to match the transparency and ease you're creating externally?
Yeah, I think, well, one thing, I love the words transparency. So, we try to be very transparent with the team, especially since we're an early stage company. So, how much money did we raise? What's our burn? So we share all this with our investors. We make sure the entire team sees those investor updates. So there's no surprise. There's never going to be a day where I walk in and be like, hey, we didn't, we failed. We got to lay everybody off, and you're caught off guard. Right? You see the numbers every single month. You'll know the day that we're about to run out of money. And you'll know the problems that got us there. So very transparent in that sense. And I think that gives people a sense of comfort because we talk about the things that are going really well and we talk about the things that need to go better all the time and every time. And then what I like about our brand, agree.com, is that we call, like companies always have like a name for their team members, like the Googles, the Googlers. Ours is the agreeables. And I just think like, it's a cool culture to build around because, like, by nature, it's a very positive thing. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody, but we find a way to come together and come to consensus and stack hands and like make sure that we're all in this together and everybody does agree before we kind of go forward with something. So I like that. I don't know if it scales. I love small teams and I'll try to keep teams as small as I can for as long as I can. But at some point in a company's success, you got to get to that 1,000th person. People are making the remarks now with AI that we'll never have 1,000-person companies anymore. So maybe we'll be in a new era.
Exactly. So is there one ritual or habit inside your team that's helped you move fast while staying in sync altogether?
I think it's aggressive communication. Like I'm a big fan of over communicate, and I need a special team to do this because if you're too junior, if this was your first job, you're not going to respond well to this level of communication. Where I personally find that the reason that things go bad, the reason that conflict happens in business, in relationships, is somebody reacts poorly to a situation or a conversation. And so to mitigate that, I think through all the permutations of what could go right or could go wrong all the time. So and then I've already thought through, okay, if it goes right, we'll celebrate. And I even think through how we'll celebrate. We'll order a cake, get champagne, and what do an offsite in Vegas or something. And then I think through all the things that could go wrong. And then I think through just the same side of the champagne. What do we do? How do we react? What would we say? And so the team sees that like I'm never caught off guard. I'm never surprised because I've exhaustively thought through like, oh, I was ready for this. And so our mantra as a team is go forward as though you're right. That conviction and that great, but prepare as though you're wrong. So we're constantly preparing for the fact that like we didn't get it right and that we got it wrong. But that I think is how we pivot so quickly. I think that's the true spirit of like our culture. It's just like massively rapid, fast pivoters.
Yeah. What does success look like for a business using agree.com beyond just speed?
Yeah, the way I look at it, order of operations, I want you as our customer to have a really great experience. I want you to be happy. But that's actually second. What I think is more important is that again, it comes to the customer's customer. When your customer doesn't just sign, doesn't just pay, but they actually send you a note that says, "Hey, that was awesome. Like, how are you like? Can you introduce me? How do you like it? Do you have a referral code?" That's when I know I've knocked it out of the park because My thinking is like, yes, you should service your customer. You should, be a good steward to your customer. But if I do everything I need to do to make sure that your customer is having a great experience, then the byproduct of that is that you have a great experience and you have a great product. Because I would actually argue the product that you use to upload the contract and send it out for signature, if it breaks and it's wonky and you've got some bugs, but on your customer side, it's super fast and quick and just better than anything else in the market, you'd actually put up with a broken experience if your customer has an amazing experience. And so I think we're always all thinking about our own customers. And so I just want to make sure that that experience is 10 out of 10, the best it can be. And so we put that first and foremost.
So, has there been any types of clients who have surprised you in how creatively they've used the platform?
Yeah, because I make money if you use us for e-signature and you send invoices and people pay those invoices. That's how we make money. But if you just want to use us for e-signature, you can. And there's a lot of times where there isn't payment at the end of that. An NDA is like that. And so one day early in the life cycle of the product, I think during the MVP, we noticed that there was a user with an at Instagram.com email. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. What the heck's Meta doing in here? And so we got that user on the phone and wanted to talk to them and see what they were using the product for and to see if, hey, is there a way that Facebook can use Agree at large? And it turns out that this woman, she manages the top influencers on the platform, but specifically on Instagram, but the ones who are in the US, but not US citizens. And so they need reference letters to maintain their sponsorship status. And so she uses agree.com to send those reference letters, right? So there's no payment, there's no money movement, but it means some really big names on Instagram run through Agree and they use Agree. And so like the one that I can share is the chief creative officer for Mr. Beast is like on there. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like that's fun to see some of those names pop up. We've had other big names like Nate Silver signed a document on Agree. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So it's fun to see some of these like bigger names come through.
That's fantastic. So, what signals do you look for that tell you a company is a great fit for Agree.com?
Oh, it's very easy if I know your current tool set. If you're using DocuSign, almost guaranteed you're not thrilled about it and you do not want to pay for it. I have yet to come across someone that's like, oh yeah, I really like DocuSign and I love paying them. Almost everybody, when I say today's the last day you're going to pay for DocuSign, they're like, oh, thank God, tell me more. And then if
Very
you're
simple.
using, yeah, and then the
DocuSign.
other one is QuickBooks invoicing. So if you're using those two tools, I know you're instantly going to fall in love with it. Great. Because the thing with QuickBooks is really interesting. It's psychological. I'll ask somebody, hey, what do you use for invoicing? And they'll be a little embarrassed to say like, oh, I use QuickBooks. It's like, because that's what they started with. They know they've outgrown it. They just haven't taken the time to move to a new platform, but they know that they're bigger than QuickBooks and they shouldn't be sending a QuickBooks. And you'd actually be surprised how many people are still sending invoices. And a bunch of people listening to this are like, oh my gosh, that's me, manually. They're going into Google Docs. They have a little invoice template and they just export it as PDF and they send it out. And so they have there's no data. They're in there. What they do, all of them, because I always ask this question, because I did this a long time ago too. The invoice number, they fake it. They just type in a random set of numbers, so it looks like there's a bunch of invoices in their platform. So it's not like invoice one, invoice two. It's like invoice 3,604 hyphen B. But everyone does that. And so those folks are really easy to convert over because they know they need a better system. They know they need something automated. So that's usually how I know. And then honestly, right now, the product, as a founder, you're constantly, our mantra is mature the product, mature up market, mature the product, mature up market. So that means at this stage, there's a certain cohort of companies that like we're perfect for. And then there's a cohort of companies that like we're not ready for because they won't have a 10 out of 10 experience because I'm missing some features that I have to build, right? Long list of roadmap of features to build. But if you do between like 1 and 50 million in annual revenue, like you're gonna have a pretty good time on Agree.
As the contract and payment space evolves, where does Agree fit in the future of work or B2B fintech?
Yeah. So one of the ones that I like, again, as we think about like agentic and we think about workflow automations, there's AI is going to break down, and it already has started a bunch of silos that had pre-existed for a number of years. And it is odd for a company where all of their revenue flows through a sales contract, that the sales team and the finance team are so disparate and disjointed. And the legal team's this way as well. They sit in they're in different offices in different states, and if they're in the same building, they're on radically different floors. The odds of anyone of ever meeting anybody in person from those three different teams are so small. And the question is why, right? They all need each other to do the same thing, generate revenue, but none of them talk to each other, none of them interact. And the salesperson today closes the deal on DocuSign, exports the PDF, puts it into some kind of Slack or sort of file share system. Someone in finance goes and grabs it, opens it up, opens up the invoicing tool, manually types it all in, sends it out. The sales rep was never told that, the client had been invoiced. The sales rep has to ask finance, hey, did the invoice go out? Hey, did they pay? Because once it hits, the sales rep has no access to the bank account, so they don't know when it hits. The finance person that sent it out doesn't even have access, so they don't know if it hit. And then when they're looking at the reconciliation every month, they're like, okay, this hit. And really the salesperson kind of finds out when like they do or don't get their commission at the end of the month. Like that's a weird broken workflow. So like breaking down these silos is what things like Agree, because it'll be more like a collaboration tool. You won't have to, we're not going to replace Slack, but it's an opportunity for sales, finance, and legal to collaborate together. It's a platform for them to do that.
In the one platform. Yeah.
That's right.
So are there any capabilities or integrations you're especially excited to launch next?
Yeah, so the big ones are, and these are like some of the most popular requested, but QuickBooks integration for the accounting side. Obviously, we'll fight QuickBooks on the invoicing side. Xero, like some of the ERPs, some bookkeeping and accounting software will integrate into HubSpot. So we're going to launch that at HubSpot's big conference in September in San Francisco. So that'll be September, I think it's like 3rd. So that's going to be really exciting. But then we'll also have Salesforce integration. That's really exciting. And then the biggest thing that we're going to launch, some parts of it already exist, but we'll make a big splash at Money 2020 in Vegas, is our agentic revenue recovery. So the ability to go, because collections, like when somebody's late for a payment or somebody missed a payment, it's a human task today. And a lot of folks, a good majority of their revenue, somewhere between like 3 to 10%, is stuck in this limbo of like a human has to go and like track it down. That should be automated. And us owning the sales contract helps us do that better.
Okay, so if we fast forward 3 to 5 years, how do you hope Agree.com has changed the way business close deals and get paid?
Yeah, because it'll be quicker, faster, because we know the contract, because we have it from the signing, what terms in the contract speed things up or slow things down. And so I can tell you if a 12% discount rate versus an 8% discount rates closes more deals quicker, faster. And I can tell you what the impact is on your bottom line quarter by quarter, year by year. And we'll be able to do a cost-based analysis of, hey, 8% versus 12%, like give the 12% all day long because you're closing more deals at a faster cadence and your sales team's being more effective. So you're actually generating more revenue in the long term, even though you're losing the 4% on the discount each contract. Like we'll be able to tell you that kind of granularity. We'll be able to tell you exactly where clients are getting hung up on the contract. And if you've ever had a situation where someone sent you a contract and you did a quick reply and said, hey, my name's Martin, but people call me Marty. And so, hey, you wrote Marty in the legal document. Can you change it to Martin so it's my legal name because I wanted it that way? You should never have to respond to that email. You should not have to do any work, right? Agree should just go in, update the contract, let you know that it's been updated and have you approve it and send it out, but also reply back instantly and be like, on it. And that's something where you're just like, yeah, go. That's a very easy fix. Or if they say, hey, you forgot to put in a certain clause, like we can go find that clause and we can, get it queued up and teed up and ready for you. Just things like that.
So it sounds like you've had an incredible journey so far. So if you had a magic wand to fix one thing that's slowing you down now, what would it be?
It's always more humans. I like staying small and lean, but there's always that like, oh, if I had 2 more people, right? If I had 1 more person on the sales side, we convert people faster. If I had 1 more front end engineer, we'd ship features quicker. And so it's a constant balance of staying lean, staying fiscally responsible, but then like just knowing you could move a little bit faster. You can't throw too many people at it because you'll actually start to slow down, ironically. But 1 or 2 more people will always speed us up. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing.
For the listeners, what's one outdated habit or process you'd love to see small businesses let go of?
So the one I'll talk about is when we talk about e-signature, I think sometimes people forget. So everyone's done it. Everyone's used DocuSign or PandaDocs. But you can still just sign with pen and paper. In a lot of places, it's more legally binding. But the question is like, why don't we do it? Well, it's inefficient because you have to sign the doc. You have to print it out on your printer. You have to sign it. You have to put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and then you have to mail it to me for me to get it, right? And then let's just say that takes 3 to 5 days. It's kind of inefficient. If you could sign it on Agree, 3 to 5 seconds. Like, okay, 3 to 5 seconds way beats 3 to 5 days. When we talk about invoicing, and I kind of alluded to like the process before, a sales rep takes a PDF, sends it to a finance person. A finance person has to go grab it, open it, manually put all the data in, send out the invoice. That process, guess what? Takes 3 to 5 days. And we don't think that that's silly. We think it's silly not to spend 3 to 5 days signing a contract, but we don't think it's silly spending 3 to 5 days doing the more important part, invoicing to get the revenue. Like you're slowing down your revenue. Now think about those 3 or 5 days aggregated in at scale against all of your invoices and all of your, like, that's a lot of revenue that is slowing down that you could be recognizing quicker. And so that's an outdated construct that I want to just see gone. I don't want anyone losing their job with AI. I want those folks in those roles closing more contracts and processing more invoices, which again is good for us. More invoices, more revenue on our side. So it's a win-win for everybody all the way around.
So where can people try Agree.com out or connect with your team to learn more?
Yeah, so it's agree.com, which is super easy go. It's total self-serve, but I will say if you want, I'm just Marty at agree.com. Email me. We're small enough that when you email customer support, you're getting the CEO. But if you're listening to this pod, then you get full white glove service. Just send me an email. Happy to onboard you. Make sure you get the 10 out of 10 onboarding experience. And then anything that you need or you feel is missing, like we'll adapt quickly to it and get it in there for you. But most people just, because there's like 40,000 users on the platform now, and most of those are self sign-on. And then you can follow the story. I'm Marty Madrid on Twitter, but Agree HQ on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn, and we kind of do the like build in public when we share a lot of stuff that we're building, what's happening real time. So you can kind of follow the story live too.
Beautiful. I love that. So thanks so much for tuning into this episode, and a big thank you to our guest, Marty from Agree.com. It was great learning how you're reshaping the way businesses manage contracts and payments, making it faster, smarter, and finally seamless. This podcast is proudly sponsored by the AI Evolution. We are growth partners helping businesses scale strategically using smart systems, automation, and AI solutions. So if you're ready to unlock growth, reach out to us. Thank you.